Hi everybody, I'm Lisa Stout, an FOW Crew Leader. When I'm not in the park, I love to spend time in my garden. And maybe it's something that you also are really into, or maybe it's something that has just become something you'd like to get into. So I wanted to share a few things that might be interesting things for you to plant or things to keep in mind when you're thinking about what you might like to plant in your garden to attract wildlife. I wanted to share some things about starting a pollinator garden, or maybe at least encouraging more pollinators, such as bees and butterflies, to come to your yard. Remember that flowers, including those on many vegetable plants, fruit when they are pollinated. So these pollinators are necessary for our food and flowering plant reproduction. Maybe you've heard a lot of buzz about native plants. What are they and why are they important? Well, first of all, a native plant is considered to be something that has been here in a particular area since at least before the time of settlement by Europeans. These plants tend to do well in a particular climate because they are adapted to that environment, meaning that they may need less nutrient input or water input, and they'll thrive in a particular place. And they'll maintain the biodiversity of a particular area and provide habitat for wildlife that lives in that area also. So does this mean that you have to convert your entire yard to a native flower garden all at once, or even at all? More native plants in your yard is better, but if you have some favorite non-native plants mixed in and they're not invading your garden, it's just fine. There are also places, including the USDA, the US Forest Service, and your state extension, that may offer some native alternatives to plants that you may find attractive to put in your garden. When we say native, how native does it have to be? Does it matter? Knowing a little bit about a plant's historical range can give us a sense of the climate it will really grow well in, as well as the bugs and small mammals it will interact with. So the more we can find out about where a plant is known to live or had lived in the past, the better it might do. When we talk about non-native plants, they're not all bad. Some are very useful as food and habitat for all kinds of critters. Some, however, spread out of control, take over, and occupy space that could be used by native plants. We say these plants are invasive. And controlling or removing these plants and replacing them with native plants may encourage more wildlife to come to your yard. I want to mention a few of the native plants that return year after year, the perennials, especially some known to attract pollinators. Probably the one that's attracted the most attention lately is milkweed, known because it's the exclusive meal for the monarch butterfly caterpillar. As milkweed stands have been in decline, monarch populations have also been declining dramatically. Planting milkweed may bring monarchs to your yard so they'll lay their eggs and you will have their caterpillars, and you could wish them a good trip to Mexico and then see them come back the following year if you're lucky. Common milkweed and its relatives are one example of a pollinator perennial, but another that's not strictly native but naturalized is Queen Anne's lace. It, along with plants in the carrot family, such as parsley, attract swallowtails like this black swallowtail butterfly, and its caterpillars, shown below on parsley. But this family also includes dill, which may be a nice herb to plant in your yard, and it is known to attract these butterflies. Don't forget that while we love to see these flashy butterflies, much of the pollination work is done by bees. Honeybees, while not actually native, are economically important pollinators, but so are bumblebees and many of our other native bees. Did you know Pennsylvania has over 300 species of native bees? Most of them won't even sting you. Supporting these native bees can be done by providing flowers they love, many of which are native plants. Depending on your outdoor space, how much of it you have, and how much sun it gets, here are some native perennials that attract pollinators and also provide food and habitat for lots of animals. For instance, birds love the seeds of coneflowers or echinacea. Some other examples of some native Flowering plants that attract pollinators are things like bee balm or phlox or yarrow, or depending on how dry or wet your yard is, iris and lobelia make good choices for wetter areas. If you live in a place where there's not a whole lot of sun, why don't you consider a shade garden? There are plenty of native flowering plants that are shade loving, as well as ferns, which may not attract pollinators, but these can serve as good wildlife habitat. Some great shade garden plants include foam flowers, white wood asters, Jacob's ladder, and blue lobelia, just to name a few. Okay, so once you figure out good places to plant, a question might be, do I plant seeds or plants that have already been started? If you have patience, seeds can go into the ground now in the spring or in the fall, but they probably aren't going to do a whole lot of growing this year. If you want to start from seedlings, check around for plants from nurseries that grow them from seed, rather than from the unfortunate practice of poaching from wild areas. Look at planting instructions on seed packets or the seedling tags, and remember, these plants are supposed to like it here, so hopefully you can just watch the pollinator parade. Here are some websites to check out for more info. You can also ask your garden friends. Gardeners love to give away plants that spread through their gardens, and it might be a useful source for you. Thanks for watching, and see you around.